Welcome to another presentation of the Relationship Toolbox, a show about building positive relationships with others and the skills that are necessary for doing that. Today our show is about the topic of mediation. What is mediation and how does it differ from other forms of conflict resolution? We have a guest with us today, Tim King, who is a lawyer and a mediator from the Middlebury District. So we appreciate your being here and helping us to demonstrate what mediation looks like. So let's start by defining what mediation is, Tracy, and how it differs from some of the other forms of conflict resolution.
So when we're having a conflict with someone, we can choose to negotiate a resolution to the conflict. And that basically means that the two parties who are in conflict rely on their own skills to resolve the situation, or perhaps they arbitrate a resolution, which means a third party decides for them what's going to happen. Or they could choose to mediate the conflict, which means a third party comes into play and assists the two people in the conflict by helping them communicate with each other. And they're looking for options while remaining neutral and not taking sides. So that's basically what mediation is. And in our mediation session today that we have here, laid out for all of you, we will be showing how the skills listed on our board here are used in the mediation process.
We begin the process by interviewing each party individually. And we do this to try to get some background information, to learn what the issues are from their point of view, and to learn a little bit about what their negotiating style is so that we know perhaps how we might be able to help them better discuss the topic that they're working on with each other. In our role play today, we have learned from our intake interview with Tim and with Marcia the following information. Marcia and Tim have been married for 15 years, and they have recently divorced. They have one child, an adolescent daughter, Angie, who is 13 years old. Tim is a practicing lawyer in town, and Marcia is a pediatrician in private practice. Both are well respected in the community. Their daughter, Angie, is a popular child with her peer group and does well in school, but is very concerned about her social standing. Recently, Angie got into a conflict with her best friend, Tamara, over a boy that Angie has just started dating. Tamara has also been showing interest in this boy and last weekend went out on a date with him. Angie found out and is furious about this. In retaliation for what she considers Tamara's disloyalty to her, Angie has posted some very nasty and false information on Facebook to get back at Tamara.
So today the conflict between Marcia and Tim is about how to respond to Angie's actions on Facebook, how to handle the school's response and how to handle the reactions of the students at school. Also, Tamara's parents, and there's escalating publicity going around, how to handle Tamara's parents and the incident, how this is generating in the community. So the school is talking about suspending Angie, and Tamara's parents have hired a lawyer to take legal action against Angie and against her parents. Angie's always sort of been a little bit of a daddy's girl, and Tim is very protective of her, and he tends to be pretty liberal with the way he raises his teenager. Marcia, on the other hand, is far more strict when it comes to the standards that she expects from Angie, and the resentment between both of them in the way that they feel about their parenting styles and their different perspectives about that is one of the reasons that prompted their divorce. So they're having a difficult time communicating about that. And this situation has exacerbated based on their differences.
So as you can probably tell from the setup here, Tracy and I are co-mediating this situation, and we will now start the mediation by having Tim and Marcia each share their point of view about how to deal with Angie and all the repercussions of her comments on Facebook. So Tracy, why don't we start with the usual, if each of you would take a moment to share with the other what topics you'd like to put on the table here, what issue, and would you just sort of state it to each other so we get a sense of where each one of you wants to go with this. We can start with either one of you.
I want to arrest this behavior. I'm mortified. I'm afraid of where she's headed if we don't draw a line. We've got to head off the school and then this potential lawsuit for libel. I just want this to be done and never repeated again. And we've got to send the message that this is not okay.
So from your point of view, Marcia, then you're saying that whatever you come up with, it really needs to send a strong message to your daughter that this is totally unacceptable behavior.
Yes, and we have to be united because I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be the one who says, you know, this is wrong, and then have Tim say something different.
So
Because
then you're on a
it
different
sets me
page,
up,
right.
and that's not going to be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Tim, from your point of view?
Everybody's making a big deal about this. It's really nothing. Everybody's just got to take a breath and let kids be kids.
Okay.
This mediation session, I mean, it starts out, Marcia says, we have to do this, we have to do that. This whole session was her idea anyhow. So if people would just stop.
If we could figure it out ourselves, we wouldn't be here.
Okay.
So can we, go ahead.
I was
Tom.
gonna say,
Yeah.
Marcia, I'm going to ask that you, at this point, just listen to what Tim has to say. This is his point of view. It doesn't mean that what he says is any more valid than what you were saying. It just means that we need to listen to each other at this point. So, Tim, go ahead. You were saying that.
If everybody would just stop for a minute, the school would stop, relax, take a week without doing anything, this would all just die into the background. Again, it's kids being kids. It's kids writing on the wall. It's kids just expressing themselves. You know, this is not a, you know, a declaration of war or anything. It shouldn't be taken as such.
So for you, Tim, this is more kids will be kids, and this is just what they'll do, and it'll pass if you just let it go and everyone kind of turns a blind eye, that it'll feel more to you, that it'll be acceptable and just go away.
Yes, I do feel that way.
Okay.
Okay. So could we kind of follow that line of thinking a little bit? Marcia, from your point of view, what do you think would happen if the two of you did nothing in particular about this? Just allowed time to go by?
I feel like she wouldn't think that her behavior has any consequences. I would be concerned about what would happen down the road. She has no empathy about what she's done. I mean, to say that kids will be kids, that doesn't apply anymore with the internet. I mean, young people kill themselves over less than what she has said. I don't want to be I don't want
Those
to.
are young people with problems, not our daughter.
So Marcia, I'm hearing from you that it's really important that Angie have some kind of takeaway lesson from this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want her to understand the consequences of this behavior. I want her to feel it. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about her safety. I'm concerned about Tamara's safety. I'm concerned about if we ignore this, what it will blossom into down the road, and that, okay, maybe nothing big has come out of it this time, but this could be worse next time if we don't say enough. You know, behave yourself.
Is that more your parenting style, where you sort of feel like when, you know, you've had enough and you feel like she needs to get that lesson, you're a more put your foot down kind of person and say this is what's right? Would you say that that's how you parent?
Probably, but I don't know when to pick my battles, as I've been told. I tend to fight every one of them, but I think this one is an important one.
Okay.
This is not one that I'm willing to ignore.
Can I say something?
Sure.
My concern here is not that we shouldn't send a message to Angie, but that the message shouldn't be draconian.
Okay.
It shouldn't be huge, because, you know, this is a time when she needs space. She's growing. It's you know, she needs to be nurtured, and we could do real damage here if we come down on her hard.
So I'm hearing some hesitation, or at least some caution, about how to approach Angie about this from you. What would the message be that you feel that Angie should take from this, from your point of view, Tim? What would you like her to understand about what has happened?
First and foremost, we love you, and the fact that you've done something which has frankly ticked a lot of people off doesn't make us love you any less. We're here to support you, and we just want you to understand that, you know, maybe you've hurt some other people's feelings, and you should consider other people's feelings going forward before you do something like this again.
Do you have any ideas about how you might help her with that concept if we went further with that? How do you help her to sort of, as I hear you right, to empathize with what she might have done, the impact it has on other people? How would you kind of get her to realize that, to understand it?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this.
Surprising you should say that, because my first response would be that we need to present a united front, and it needs to come from both of us if we could agree on what that message should be.
Well, just think for a minute how we would feel if this had happened to our daughter and that she wasn't the perpetrator, but she was the victim. How would you feel then? I think that's where we need to start from.
Well, it sounds like you're both in agreement on one thing to begin with here, and that is that you both agree that she needs to understand something from this. She needs to have a takeaway from this experience. It sounds like where the disagreement is the intensity of the response, the degree of it, and what might carry that message in a way that wouldn't traumatize her. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not interested in traumatizing her, but I do want her to I want her to feel it. I don't want it to be, oh, sweetie, you can't go to the movies this weekend because you wrote some nasty things on the internet that were untrue, and potentially, you know, has us being sued. I don't think she gets it.
So let me answer the question you asked me. How would I feel if this had happened to our daughter? I would be angry, but I would try to take responsibility for my own anger and not act it out in the community like, you know, Tamara's parents are trying to do.
And I agree. I wouldn't be hiring a lawyer, but I would want some kind of justice to assure me that this wasn't going to happen to my daughter again, or to anybody else from that person.
So there are two things that I actually heard that you are agreeing on, and you had said it earlier, Marcia, and you said it recently, Tim, that you do want to be a united front and come up with some solution that you can both present to her, that you both find a presentable thing for her. Would that be accurate?
I think it has to be. We have to be on the same page, or it doesn't mean anything. She's going to find the way around it to weasel and to play us against each other, and I am not willing to be the fall guy.
And does the same page mean that you have to be in complete agreement with each other, or do you think there's a way to come up with something that you
I don't know.
would both be able to
I don't
do?
know, because that's why we're here.
Okay.
I don't know Angie, obviously, but is this very atypical for Angie to sort of retaliate in this way and get this upset, or is this totally out of character?
It's atypical.
Yeah, this blindsided me. I think it's about boys. This is a new chapter.
Her feelings were hurt. I mean, she cared about this boy, and
Wow.
Would that be
She's
a place?
13. This is
Yeah.
everything.
Would that be a place to start? Tim, you had said something about you wanted to get the message across that she was loved, and despite what has happened with it. Would this be a place to start with her if you were to talk with her about how you believe this is not the usual Angie that you have experienced over the years? This is something that is new behavior, and how you feel about it, and
I think we also have to talk to her about boys a little bit, and relationships, and how she's going to get her feelings hurt, and how to handle that going forward.
Okay. So you're seeing it more as helping her to understand, to regulate her own feeling, that just because she felt that this boy should be her boyfriend, didn't give her the right perhaps to act on this in that manner. Is that what you're thinking?
Absolutely. I think we can both see that she's, you know, at 13 years old, approaching a really rocky landscape in the next couple of years, and she doesn't see it, but we could try to help prepare her for that.
Okay.
But it is a time to be the parent. We can't be her best friend. And I think sometimes you want to be her pal more than her parent. And this is a time when it's important to say, I need to be the parent.
So I have a question about that. So if you're coming from either of those perspectives, as a friend type of parent or having a little bit of a stricter view that you've said you have, do either of those views lessen you wanting to tell her how much you love her and care about her and want her to be okay?
Of course not. Of
Okay.
course not.
So-
But a 13-year-old is not going to understand that you can love somebody and punish them.
Okay. So it's an important message to come from both of you that you do love her and are concerned.
I think where we're disagreeing is this punish part. You
Okay.
know, I'm hearing
Okay.
punish,
Yes.
and
Teach.
Teach.
But I don't think that she's going to get the lesson unless there's some consequence. What consequence are you presenting?
I don't think consequence in the term of like punishment is really what we should be looking at.
Can you give some examples of what you might think would be a consequence, but not necessarily a punishment, which we usually think of somebody you have to pay for what you've done, but something that a consequence that I'm hearing from you, Marcia, something more in line that would help teach her, to get her to be more understanding of the impact of what she's done.
Well, I think that she needs to go to this family and humbly apologize. I think she needs to be exposed to current events of what other kids have done in these situations. You hear these horrible stories. I would never want to lose my daughter because she had been, it's bullying. I mean, because she had been libeled online and closeted up in her room and thought that her life was not worth living. I mean, I know you think I'm exaggerating, but I just worry. That's a concern I have. Just like, you know, substance abuse or anything else. I want her to be protected from this, but she needs to understand she could, it's harmful.
So you really want her to understand even though it may not have happened in that way, but the seriousness, the potential
Very serious.
consequence of this that has happened to other people.
But I don't think she should be suspended from school. It didn't happen at school. It's bled into school, but it didn't happen there. It had nothing to do with anything that happened at school. It's between them and their friendship. You know, I'm not.
So one step, though, that's important for you is her apologizing to Tamara.
Yeah, she lied about this girl.
Okay. And Tim, what do you think about that?
I think that's important. I think she needs to understand that she has not only lied, but hurt someone. And that if she can develop some empathy around that, and I think she's very capable of doing that if she can see past her own pain. You know, as I said, you know, she's in pain because of, you know, this whole relationship thing. And she just needs to see past her own pain and understand that there are other people involved and that she's done some damage herself.
Have either one of you had the opportunity to talk to her yet about her pain and
yeah,
how she's feeling about the boy? I'm sorry.
About the boy? No. I mean, I'm mostly dealing with the travesty of this, and you know, stomp up to my room and throws herself in the bed, and I'm impossible. But I also think that I would like to know her passwords until her passwords until she can earn back the right to have this private communication.
Yeah,
I think.
Again, I think that's overbearing, taking away her rights to her computers and her passwords, and it's just going too far.
So what would be a way of helping to regulate that then? So that she might understand this is okay behavior on the computer and this is not. She would understand that.
I think she has to understand that this individual acting out is not okay. I'm not aware of anything else that she's done that has crossed that
No,
line.
but this sets a precedent on how we handle anything, curfews, other boys, anything, any boundaries that she's pushing later sets a precedent on how we handle it now. And so that's another reason I think it's important. Not just about this incident, but how we go forward as parents in different households. And
So I'm hearing
we're almost out of
some
time.
talk about somehow proposing to her that an apology would be appropriate and why it might be appropriate, what the other parties might be feeling, while at the same time empathizing with the pain that originally drove her to this type of behavior. And I'm also hearing an idea that perhaps there should be some discussion of some regulation of her computer, or at least some clear expectation from both of you as to how she may and may not use Facebook. Is that correct?
I said it. I didn't hear it from Tim.
I'm going to agree that some appropriate measured consequences
Okay.
would be important.
And are you in agreement with Marcia that having Angie do an apology, which the wording could be worked out and so forth between the two, but is that something that you are in agreement with?
I think it's critical.
Okay. All right.
Hallelujah.
Could
So
the
we're-
two of you do that together and talk to her, or would you like to each talk to her individually? Do you think that would be okay?
I think we need to agree on what we would talk to her together about beforehand, because I don't want us
To be
to,
making it up as we go.
or
Yeah.
to degenerate into conflict with her.
Agreed.
So to get
So-
very specific about it with it, so when you go with this plan to Angie, not only are you in agreement, but you're very clear to Angie about what your expectations are.
And that we should present a united, as much as possible, loving, front to her.
We're going to have to break.
We're going to have to
the
break
role.
character
Yeah.
because we're almost out of time.
So for
And
the
I-
sake of mediation, can I just wrap that
Yes,
up though?
yes,
So what
please.
we've come up with today so far is that you both agree that you're going to ask her and talk to her about apologizing to this person, and that you're going to come up with some appropriate consequences that you both agree upon, and you're going to have a united front when you talk to her about these things, and you're going to figure out what that looks like before you talk to her. Would that be?
You guys are geniuses.
It might be worth bringing her if we have to come back.
Okay, that's another option.
I think, if
Okay.
she's willing to have, because it might be helpful to have our conversation mediated, so that we're, okay.
All right.
But we do have to break character because we're like, we're running out of
We've got
time.
about 7 minutes left here.
So,
So this is
6 minutes.
kind of a flavor of what mediation is like, the skills that we've been trying to use, the safety we've been trying to create in this setting for the parents to talk with one another with it. And if we were to go on, we would continue to try to work on and tease out some possible resolutions to this and have them make a commitment to each other and then actually carry that out. I would like to take a little bit of time, since we, again, going out of role now, we're going to now talk as 4 mediators here. In our own practices, what do we see as the benefit and the uniqueness of mediation as a process of resolving conflict? And Tim, you do different types of
I have done family mediation in the past, but mostly now different types. And I would say that running through all of the different types of mediation is the value of a neutral, objective party. We've got people who by definition are in conflict with each other. They're firmly positioned. They have investments in the outcome, past histories. And to be able to get someone involved who can see things with clear eyes, with a fresh perspective, and perhaps raise the whole dispute to another level, to a higher level, is really the way mediation is sometimes miraculous.
it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discovery that can happen during what usually is a difficult conversation. And people, as you know, will sometimes not talk to each other between sessions because they don't have the skills yet. But
Yes.
they rely on the safety of helping navigating through that. And they can listen, and they can hear new information that they didn't know before, which can get things unstuck.
I could throw another thing in.
Sure.
The mediators can be extraordinarily valuable in being able to observe and make the parties recognize what the real issues are behind the dispute. Okay, it's not about who gets the Tupperware. It's really not about the Tupperware. It's about you're not listening to me, or you don't respect me, or you always, make all the decisions for me.
You have all the power, and
Right. I think one of the things I see in mediation is almost a twofold process. One is getting the process started and the way people can talk with each other so that that starts to happen. When people say, I don't think I've ever felt heard like this before, or we never talked like this before with it, that is sort of the first stage. And then once that has happened, it sort of frees people to think more creatively about what might be some resolution to this, because they're beyond the I'm going to make sure you don't get your way, or I'm going to make sure that something bad is going to happen to you because I don't like what you did to me.
In a nutshell, it's about communication, and then once the communication can take place, then it turns into a negotiation. But it's hard to negotiate when you haven't communicated yet.
Right.
and until you have the skills.
Yes.
And it's better than having somebody impose it on you, even if they're well-meaning, because usually the parties somewhere have an answer. It just has to surface.
And that's a big difference between going to court or arbitration, where a third party will tell you, I've listened to both sides and this is what I'm telling you you will now do, and going out with that kind of feeling, versus two people working it through together and saying, I can live with this. I think this is a good solution to it. And
That
certainly
sticks a little better too, because it's longer term when you do it like that.
Certainly studies of mediation have shown that people tend to follow their agreements more when they have had a part in carrying them out.
So we've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, so I guess what I'd like to share is that once more we've reached the end here. And thank you, Tim, again for coming and contributing this way. It means a lot. Please feel free as viewers to give us some feedback about our show. And you can do that by emailing us at the address on the screen. We do not answer emails in terms of a two-way communication, but we do want to hear from you. And we look forward to seeing you for our next show.